Last year when they were trying to ban TikTok, I made this video. You there, Senator? It's me, your constituent. I tried calling my senator about the TikTok ban, and this is what I got.
Thank you so much for your call.
This mailbox is full.
Your colleagues could not answer a question about TikTok to save their lives. So, me, being a constituent in Ohio, I'm putting this out there. If you or your loved ones or any of your coworkers want to know more about TikTok and the culture and how it has changed my life, give me a call. And I didn't get a response until the other day. You're watching this video right now. That means that I'm going to this thing. So I'm gonna go, take it in good faith, and I'll do an update of what happened. Because I'm a little worried. Here's how it went. So when I got the message that someone wanted me to meet Sherrod Brown, I started doing my research about what I was going to ask, because an opportunity like this is not going to come around often, so I wanted to be prepared. I looked up, like, what exactly do they want to ban of the TikTok bill, how it relates to the Restrict Act, and really, like, did my research. Also, shout out to Cecilia for sending me this really cool website about the Restrict Act. But also, here's the fit that I wore. I thought it was pretty cute. But anyway, I got up and it's already on like the sixth floor of a building with a fundraiser underneath. And I get there and they all have like these cool name tags for us, you know, to like, I don't know, sit in front of us so Sherrod and Cory Booker know who they're talking to. We're sitting down, you know, there's like these cool merch things that they give us. And I asked the person running the event, I was like, oh, so what is this like, what's the gist of this event? Because I didn't really get any like details about what I'm supposed to be talking about or what they want me to talk about. You know, the event was very detail sparse, and which slightly makes sense because when I worked in journalism, no one really knew where high-level politicians were gonna be until they're gonna be there, you know, for security reasons. So it makes sense. Oh, Sherrod just wants to meet you and talk about his campaign because Sherrod is running again. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought I was here specifically for TikTok. Keep in mind, we were supposed to like submit our questions early, which I did, and they didn't have any objections to like the questions that I asked. But when the other people get there, I start asking them. It's like, oh, how were you invited? How'd they reach out to you? Because my message said something about the TikTok ban, and then people came back at me and were like, what are you talking about? Well, we were just invited. None of our invites said anything about the TikTok ban. And I'm like, oh, mine did though. Interesting. So everyone's introducing themselves and they all seem really kind and really nice. And so that's when Sherrod Brown and Cory Booker walk into the room. And mind you, they seem very nice. They're very kind. They went around and shook everyone's hands. And I think this is going to be a pretty good time, right? Well, Sherrod Brown goes on like why he's running again, what we need to be worried about, you know, and stuff like that. And Cory Booker is there to hype up Sherrod Brown, meaning like Sherrod Brown supported this bill. Sherrod Brown like stands with LGBTQ rights, and like, yes, I appreciate that. Like, good on you, Sherrod, I guess, you know? And I'm wondering, when are they gonna get to the part that I'm here for? Because this is an influencer roundtable. You would think they would ask something about social media or start that off with social media, right? That did not happen. Sherrod Brown and Cory Booker get done talking. Mind you, it's only been like maybe 20 minutes of them talking. The person running the event says there's 15 minutes left for questions. Oh, okay. And I thought I had an opportunity to ask my question. And that's when the person running the event picks a specific person to ask their question. Oh, okay. And they ask a pretty good question. How will the Democratic Party reach out to young voters this year in this election cycle? And then Sherrod Brown and Cory talk about how young voters are really important to the Democratic Party. And Cory Booker talks about he was one of the first people on Twitter and how young people use social media. And I think, oh my gosh, he's going to mention the TikTok ban and the TikTok bill coming to the Senate. He does not. Okay. That's when the person running the events calls in another person. to ask their question. And that person asked about reproductive rights in Ohio, which is also very important. Again, Sherrod talks about how he stands with the LGBTQI community, how he was one of the first people to vote for gay marriage way back then, and how he stands with them and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Interesting, no? Okay. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, there's 15 minutes left for questions, and 2 questions took about maybe like 10 minutes each to answer from the both of them. I don't think they're going to ask my question. And so that's when the lady who was running the event was going to call on someone, I stopped her. I said, may I please ask my question? And I asked, do you support the TikTok ban? I talked about how this app, earlier when they were talking about how it's so hard for young people to enter the middle class. And I talked about how this app, through the opportunities that it's given me, allowed me to buy a home. It allowed me to have a wedding. You know what I mean? And I'm wondering how they support it. Here's what Sherrod Brown, the senator of Ohio, said. He does not support the Chinese Communist Party. And therefore, he does not support an app that could deliver information to the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, I appreciate the clarity in that answer. And that's when Cory Booker interrupted Sherrod and said, I think what Sherrod is trying to say, how the Senate works is that Cory Booker doesn't believe that the TikTok ban bill in its current form is going to survive the Senate at all. Especially because Chuck Schumer doesn't seem supportive of it. Cory Booker does not seem supportive of it. And frankly, the only way it could get through the Senate is with a lot of amendments, which I appreciated. And I said, that's wonderful, Senator Cory, but even if that is true, why not just legislate on data privacy instead of banning apps outright? And Cory Booker said, well, you took my talking points out of my mouth. Well, in reality, I just researched what both of them want to say about the subject and what they said last time. But, he agrees with that sentiment that there should be more data privacy. And after Cory Booker talking about that, Sherrod Brown says, well, then I would vote no on that bill too then. Which is hopeful, and I appreciate that. And I'm thinking, wait, did I change a mind? Did I do something? But I know in my heart that I am probably not going to get an opportunity like this to sit down in front of them to ask important questions that my community, especially the TikTok community, talks about. And that's when I decided to ask about Gaza. And that's when I realized I don't think they like me that much. In the invite, it said there's no recording during the Q&A section, right? And so as everyone is getting up after they complete my question about the TikTok ban, everyone's getting up and getting ready to leave. They're ending the event. I pull out my phone and start recording myself asking the question, right? And I ask, senators, before you leave, do you support a ceasefire in Gaza? Plainly. That's it. Sherrod Brown said no. I appreciate the brevity, I asked Cory Booker, do you support a ceasefire in Gaza? Cory Booker then goes to say that he supports peace in the region. He would support a bilateral ceasefire in the region, but because of politics and how they go, he would only support it if there was a for sure ceasefire on both sides. And Sherrod Brown pipes in and said he would not support it because he believes that Hamas would not support a ceasefire in Gaza. And then the event is over. I go to leave, and the person running the event said, were you recording the event? And I said, no, I was recording myself at the very end. And then she walks away. And then I go to leave. And then another person stops me and says, give me your phone. Excuse me? No. Not giving you my phone, my guy. And he said it violates the policy. And I said, what policy? I did not sign anything. I'm going to leave. And that's when he follows me out, asking for me to delete the footage. I am not going to delete the footage of me asking questions about a ceasefire in Gaza. He asks, I say no. In fact, I say I respect that you have a job to do, but I will not be handing you my phone. And I leave. And I picked up some Chipotle. So that's how it went. Some good and some bad. Mainly I'm kind of disappointed because it feels as though they were there for representation for themselves instead of us having an opportunity to ask questions that really, really mattered, you know? And I get that, they're on the campaign trail, but, you know, I have to ask that question because the world needs to know. Is that okay? I would be remiss. A lot of conversation on TikTok is talking about Palestine and Gaza. So I know you guys have to go, but do you support a ceasefire in Gaza?
I think what Schumer did, what Biden's, I would answer that question for weeks, no, only because I don't trust that either Hamas or, frankly, Netanyahu would live up to that ceasefire. I think what Schumer did on the Senate floor the other day, what Biden is doing, pushing Netanyahu, essentially telling Netanyahu he's got to change dramatically and quit inflicting this kind of damage on civilians.
The official policy of the president right now, he is working, as we're speaking, there's negotiations going on for a bilateral ceasefire, which involves returning of hostages, as well as the release of hostages, as well as a cessation of hostilities. So this is what the administration is working for. There's not a Senate Democrat that doesn't want to see these negotiations going on.
Yeah, it's got to lead to a two-state solution. It has to lead to that. Both Netanyahu and Hamas opposed a two-state solution. That's underscored. I mean, that really undergirding the problem.
And then I will ask you, as an influencer, the horrors going on in Gaza right now that have to stop. But nobody's talking about the horrors going on in Sudan right now. Literally over 10 million internally displaced people. The horrors going on in Haiti right now. And what bothers me often is communities, as being African American, is usually Africa's ignored, even though 1 out of every 4 human beings on the planet in 2050 will be African, including 1 out of every 3 workers, because Africa's population is so young. Europe, Asia, the United States, we're all aging out. So the 1/3 of all the working people on the planet will be by 2050. And I'm off to go to the Chad Sudan border next week. I'm also going to Nigeria after we get this spending bill done, trying to bring attention. And again, the horrors in Gaza should have our attention, should have our heart. The horrors of the hostages still being held, Americans still being held in Gaza right now. But please, anything you can do to give light to the other crises, because we actually can do a lot of good as a country. I was just in East Africa, in Kenya, and earlier this month I was in Kenya and Tanzania. We're doing a lot of good things to try to create stability and horrors and injustices going on in those countries as well. And so the ability for all of us probably around here, collectively, we could probably get millions of eyes on issues that people don't normally think about, and the important role the United States has to play in trying to usher a peace process in Gaza, or usher a peace as Hamedi and Burhan are fighting it out in Sudan. It's just really important, I think, for us, and especially good for folks that have channels that are about other things that occasionally bring in foreign policy issues.
So that is a yes?
Again, as I said, I stand with this idea that there needs to be a mutual bilateral ceasefire right now to allow the entrance, release hostages, the entrance of humanitarian aid and more. The problem is that we also have these conversations without nuance, where people are talking about exactly what do we need. So what I'm looking for right now is negotiations going on with Qatar is to come out with a cessation of hostilities so that we can do something about humanitarian horrors, get hostages, and get hostages released.
Appreciate
Thank y'all so much.